Men are deciding to get vasectomies as an act of love, so saith the Washington Post in this article syndicated by Yahoo News. And I gotta be honest, the story may be more hype than anything. We're in limbo week, that period after Christmas but before New Year's where nobody wants to work. But of course I will. And the only reason I take vacation is because when no one's working, it's basically impossible to get anything done. But we have this story, and I think it plays into something much larger. That is the declining birth rates of the United States, the emasculation of men, and, well, a mainstream media that overwhelmingly pushes, I don't know what the right way to describe it is. There's many stories just talking about how it's bad to be a parent. And I don't want to say that every single story does this or every single outlet does this, but there are many articles that are basically like, don't have kids. And then we get this. Men across America are getting vasectomies as an act of love. Well, this has to do with abortion. There are concerns that when Roe v. Wade gets overturned, and I'm speaking as though it's going to happen, there are many who believe Roe v. Wade will be overturned next June. When this happens, men are going to have to step up and get a snip so that women don't get pregnant and don't need them. I find that interesting because I don't entirely know where conservatives would fall on that, but I think it's fair to say that might be a compromise, I guess. The big issue around abortion is that there is a life in the womb of a woman and it's being terminated. Well, if there's never a life there, then okay, well, there's no abortion. If men don't want to have kids, contraceptive or precautionary measures, I suppose, would be a good thing, right? But then I also suppose it's kind of a bad thing considering across the world, or at least in many places, the birth rate is rapidly declining. Elon Musk went so far as to say that if we don't start having more babies, we are doomed. Elon Musk is correct. People need to understand this. That everything we have, all the comforts we have, are due to the massive population. Now, not completely. There are a lot of people who contribute nothing to the world and just consume. That's true. That's why you get these global elites that are just like, kill people. I'm kidding, by the way, but there certainly are creepy weirdos with power who absolutely don't care about whether someone lives or dies. But, you know, when it comes to like Bill Gates, for instance, here's a guy who's publicly given a TED Talk saying we need to reduce population growth. Now, I'm not going to pretend to have all the data that he claims to cite or whatever, but I can tell you this. Actually, let me give you an example of why we need people, why Elon Musk is right, and I think Bill Gates is wrong. Now, I certainly think there's overpopulation issues. Michael Malice, a good friend of the Timcast IRL podcast and the show, says that it may be density issues, or he says it's an issue of population density. But let me give you an example. There was a guy who did a TED Talk about making a toaster from scratch. A toaster. You can go buy one for $10. You can work for 1 hour at McDonald's. Yes, I know McDonald's is pronounced McDonald's. And you can get a toaster, basically. After taxes, maybe an hour and a half, right? Well, when trying to make a toaster from scratch, that is finding your own metals, making your own wiring, getting your own rubber for coating the wiring, all of that stuff couldn't be done. Notably, getting the plastics couldn't be done. So what did the guy do? He mined plastic. He went to a dump and he scooped it up. I'm sorry, that doesn't count. I suppose you could just make a metal toaster. You don't need the plastics. But the point is, the luxuries we have today at low cost are due to the fact that there's a massive population, all with different specialties that allow for this to happen. I was watching Star Trek, the reboot one, where they're in like the alternate timeline. And there's that scene where Kirk rides up on his motorcycle or whatever to the giant starship. And I'm just like, the amount of specialties you would need to craft such a vehicle is insane. Think about how many different kinds of people you need just to build a house, right? Building a house used to be like, I will place these two pieces of wood up against each other and put leaves on top, and you were done. Then we invented plumbing. Now you need city sanitation to connect you to the main line. You need home contractor plumbers who can go in and install all the pipes and make sure it's done right. They're not going to do the electrical. You need many different specialties for modern advancements in a home. Now, a lot of these electricians can do basic stuff like wiring internet and stuff like that, but then you've got a bunch of different utilities. Now, with the advent of solar, you get it. It's becoming more and more complicated to have a functioning modern home. Now, that's simple. Imagine building a massive starship or something like that. It's going to require a lot of people. So stories like this aren't just about masculinity. They're not just about men not being able to have families or being unwilling to have families. It's about the future of civilization and what it means if we don't have more children. And obviously, comment below. I don't got any kids either. We can talk about that. Certainly not getting my balls chopped off. Well, I'm kidding. They're not getting their balls chopped off. They're just getting their, vasectomies. But let's read the story from Yahoo News. They say, after Andy and Erin Gress had their fourth child, Andy decided it was time for him to step up and help with the family planning. So he did something that the mere thought of makes some men cringe. He got a vasectomy. It was early one morning last winter, a brief moment of peace before juggling getting the kids and ready for online school and work Zoom calls. He happened to see a local news story about discounts being offered during World Vasectomy Day. He made an appointment. All right. His wife had been taking birth control pills. I'm not a fan of birth control pills. It is a hormonal treatment on women, and it's mass medication of women. I'm not a fan of it. If women want to get birth control, I got no issue with that. I understand. But in this right here, in this opening paragraph, dude's got 4 kids already. I don't take issue with the guy who's like, I got 4 kids. That's good enough for me. He had 4 kids. He's happy with 4 kids. Glad he has a family. And he says, I don't want my wife to be on hormonal therapy or treatment or whatever. Okay, he got a vasectomy. See, that's why I'm saying a lot of this might be hubbub. That's not a big deal. I think that's actually fairly normal. He says, you're going to love this. The procedure was a total relief, almost like a COVID shot. Like I'm safe now, said Gress, who works in higher education. I wanted to man up. Man, they are really trying to play the masculinity angle. Be a real man. Get a vasectomy. Look, it's up to you. You live your life how you want to live your life. I'm just saying, y'all need to have kids. And for the people on the right and the conservatives, you should be happy with this. So long as conservatives are challenging critical race theory in schools, the left is going to lose. This is the major front. Why? Conservatives have tons of kids. Liberals do not. You know what that means? Progressives don't have kids. They have yours. So someone super chatted that to us on Timcast IRL. If you raise your kids and they are instilled with your values, the future is going to be more moderate and conservative, probably just more conservative. But if you put your children in institutionalized learning facilities, the progressives will indoctrinate them. And I'm not saying they're all going to come out like shaved head commies, no, but they're going to adopt leftist values. They don't have kids. They have yours. So long as conservatives are challenging leftist ideas in schools and shutting it down, conservatives will win the long game. But yeah, man up. Get your balls lopped off. I'm kidding, I know. But Gress's action wasn't just about his family. He also believed he should do more to support his wife and other women who don't think the government should decide what they do with their bodies. I've seen the miracle of life, he said, but I've also seen kids who are born into poverty and misery and don't have a fair shot. I don't understand this, okay? You're saying that someone who is in poverty should just not be alive. It reminds me, you ever see the Family Guy episode where Stewie goes, it's not that I want to kill Lois, it's that I don't want her to be alive anymore. It's a funny joke, right? Because you're like, it's the same thing. So when they come out and they're like, I've seen the miracle of life, but man, some of these kids are just poor, so they shouldn't be alive at all. That freaks me out. The problem with this and the way it's framed is you can clearly see it. He should man up and get a vasectomy. And then they go on to say that, where are we at? Where are we at? His wife had taken birth control pills. It was a total relief. But women, the government shouldn't decide what they do with their bodies. I completely agree. 100%. What about the baby's body? There was a story I tweeted about a woman who had 2 uteruses. Uteruses? Whatever. And she gave birth to a baby at 22 weeks. 22 weeks. Wow. The baby was alive. So therein lies the hard moral question when it comes to choice versus life. There are 2 bodies involved. And if there is one person, I suppose the issue is circumstance. The pro-life people would argue, well, if you were being reckless or irresponsible and this happened, you can't blame the baby and sever its life because the woman is unhappy with it. And I got to say, man, I fall into the safe, legal, and rare category of pro-choice, but it's very, very complicated. One of the most difficult moral issues, because I certainly believe life begins at conception, and anyone who argues otherwise is making a political argument. There's just I don't know what else to say. It's ridiculous when we had Vosh on the show, and he said, I asked him when he thought life begins. He said, I don't know, birth, and I'm like, no, you can't. Look. Just because someone is dependent upon somebody else doesn't mean that they're not alive. So there are very serious moral challenges to this and pro-choice. And the issue, I suppose, is, for me, the challenge is questioning whether someone was actually forced into a position, whether they're taking responsibility, and whether the government can mandate someone provide their body to someone else. I'm just like, man, that's where it gets really tough for me. And I encourage you guys to go check out the podcast I did with Glenn Beck about this, because I don't think I have any strong moral answers on this one. I certainly understand every argument made by the pro-life organizations, by pro-life individuals, most of which tend to be run by women. And it's a very difficult position for me, because I'm just like, every time I'm like, I agree with that. I agree with that. I'm like, man, but the government coming in and deciding that saying that you have an obligation to provide your body to someone else, it's like a line I just don't know. I just can't cross. My brain just can't go there. Now, we can talk about government involvement in medical procedures, because government is involved in literally every single medical procedure. You want to get a surgery, there's regulation on it. So if you want to get an abortion, what's the difference between the regulation on that and the regulation on, getting your kidney removed or something because it was diseased? You can't sell your organs. Well, there you go. Why? It's a detriment to your body. What about the body of someone else? I am not going to pretend to be anyone with enough moral standing to figure out how we should handle this. I can certainly say, though, it's not so simple. It's overly simplistic. But back to the point. In this story, they're basically concerned about Roe v. Wade and saying men are getting vasectomies to help women. Maybe that's the solution, so long as a dude has kids and has a family. And I got to be honest, though. I think conservatives would agree with this one, too, or at least should agree. If there is a dude who doesn't want to have kids, then he shouldn't have kids. I mean, think about it. The people who want to have families, who want to have kids, who want to raise them right, are the ones who should be doing it. And if there's a guy who's like, don't want to do it, then they shouldn't. And if this prevents abortion, I think that sounds like a good thing, right? I will laugh at the idea of saying, wanting to man up. But let's think about the context right here. It's a guy who already has 4 kids. So what's the issue? They go on to say, with the Supreme Court set to decide the fate of Roe v. Wade next year, and with more than 20 states poised to ban or impose restrictions on abortion depending on what the court decides, some reproductive rights advocates say it is time for men to take a more active role in both family planning and the fight for reproductive rights. In their own form of protest, state lawmakers in Alabama, Illinois, and Pennsylvania introduced legislation that highlights the gendered double standards with regards to reproductive rights. Pennsylvania Rep. Chris Rabb, a Democrat, introduced parity legislation this fall in response to the Texas law that amounts to a near total ban on abortion. It's not true. What is it, like a 15-week ban? Rabb's proposal would require men to get vasectomies after the birth of their 3rd child or when they turn 40, whichever comes first. It would be enforced by allowing Pennsylvanians to report men who failed to comply. Men are not the ones pushing pro-life legislation. What I mean by that is, it is mostly women. These pro-life organizations, these adoption agencies, these religious charities, they are run by women. Not all of them. There are men pushing pro-life causes. You better believe it. The point is, it is mostly women. It is an insane narrative that it's like, yeah, well, what about men? They got to do this. And it's like, talk to the pro-life women who are advocating to this, for this stuff. Because it is not just like men are doing this and men should be mocked for it. As long as in fact, it's also pro-choice. The whole abortion argument is overwhelmingly a female argument. Abortion organizations are run by women. Pro-life organizations are run by women. And men, for the most part, sit back and either say yes or no. Quote, as long as state legislatures continue to restrict the reproductive rights of cis women, trans men, and non-binary people, there should be laws that address the responsibility of men who impregnate them. Thus, men. And you see, this is what really, really pisses me off. These transphobes like Rab. Transphobes. Look, he says reproductive rights of cis women, trans men, and non-binary people. There should be laws that address the responsibility of men who impregnate them. What about the trans women? What about the non-binary people? You see what they do? They want to act like they care about these causes, but these transphobes like Rab, I'm being somewhat facetious, but you get the point. Don't come out here and try and play the stupid virtue signal game and then shift it back to men when you literally said men. You get the point. These people are just virtue signaling. It makes no sense. Since December 1st, when the Supreme Court heard a case that is expected to decide the future of Roe v. Wade, social media has been filled with tweets, memes, and quips using tongue-in-cheek humor to point out how men's role in reproduction is almost never talked about. Against abortion? Have a vasectomy. Well, what about the women who can't have vasectomies because they're women and they don't want to get their tubes tied because they want to have babies and they are pro-life and have babies? You see, this is the game they play. women overwhelmingly the people who are pro-life are overwhelmingly female. Overwhelmingly maybe is a bit hyperbolic. It's majority women. Check this out. This is an old story from Vox. Republicans have a millennial women problem. Nearly 70% of young women say they are leaning toward Democratic candidates in the midterms, and it's true. Let me show you this. Do you have a favorable or unfavorable opinion of the Democratic Party? And we can see that it's basically 50-50. Ever since, this is really amazing, since the fall of Kabul, I don't get this one, but sure. Since the fall of Kabul, Afghanistan, women have soured on the Democratic Party. Seriously? That's okay. I mean, that's a good thing. I didn't think a core issue for women was Kabul. It was Afghanistan. Now, if we look back at the past few years, you can see that according to civics, women tend to view the Democratic Party unfavorably, because most people do. But it's gone back and forth. As early as just this year, there was a 48% favorable rating among women in their view of the Democratic Party. Today, it is 49 unfavorable and 42 unfavorable. Quite literally, so to be fair, since the signing of the American Rescue Plan, support has been dropping, but it dropped off significantly after the Taliban captured Kabul. All right, ladies, let's get that anti-war message out there. Let's blame the Joe Biden administration for screwing that up. I am right there with you. And what about men? Well, I think it's obvious. Men don't like the Democratic Party. They never have. Going back to the beginning of the civics poll, 2015, men view the Democratic Party very, very unfavorably. 63% unfavorable, 31% favorable, and that is as of today. And the funny thing is, since the fall of Kabul, it's only gotten worse. So, I'll put it this way. Most people do not like the Democratic Party. Women are more likely to like the Democratic Party, but even they're souring on Democrats. Now, of course, here's my favorite. Everyone hates the Republicans. If you look at Republican Party favorability, you can see that's 59% unfavorable, 29% favorable. Let's take a look at the ladies. Females, 26% favorable, 63% unfavorable. Let's take a look at the gents. 33% favorable, 54% unfavorable. So basically, everyone hates the Republicans. Women hate them slightly more, and thus is politics in America. Men hate Democrats at basically the same rate they hate Republicans, but women just hate the Democrats a little bit less. Amazing. And that is how Democrats win. For these dudes that are like white knighting for these women and gonna go get their vasectomies or whatever, you got to live your life for yourself. Okay. I can't look, there are probably some ladies that are very much into, weaker men, I'm sure. My view of things is be yourself, believe in yourself, be focused on your goals, have a plan, and that's attractive to women. Not every single one, sure, fine, whatever, but for the most part, be yourself, be happy with yourself, and do your thing. Stop trying to live for other people. Here's the way I see it. We all should be living a little bit for ourselves, just a little bit, which means we have a great deal of empathy for others, and we lean slightly towards ourselves, because you want to focus local to affect global. It's the grassroots level. If every single dude said, you know what, instead of worrying about women's bodies, I'm going to worry about my body. I'm going to eat healthier. I'm going to wake up in the morning, do some push-ups, get some exercise, mandatory 30 minutes of calisthenics in the morning. Everybody would be a lot healthier, happier, and better off. Many guys would be just much more successful. Women, the same thing. If they stopped living so much for social media likes and attention, and it's not every woman, but it's enough to cause a lot of depression in young women, they would be better off if they lived a little bit more for themselves. You gotta have that balance. We need to be focused on community. We need to be focused on voting right and making positive changes for those around us. But if you don't focus on your own health, your own life, and your own goals, then everything around you starts to suffer. A sad thing here. Pope Francis. Oh, Pope Francis. He calls the declining birth rate in Italy a tragedy. Look at his sad face. This isn't the first time Pope Francis has called for Italy's adults to have more children. On Sunday, he lamented Italy's declining birth rate, labeling the trend a tragedy. And you can see he's very sad in this image. I don't know if this image has anything to do with the story, but I love how that's how it works, right? Here's an image of the Pope. He looks sad. Tragedy. Well, in the U.S., we have the same issue over at timcast.com. U.S. population growth hits lowest rate since nation's founding. All right. Here's what you should do. You should have a family. It's part of your goals, and it's part of living for yourself. So I'll put it this way. It should be like a sliding scale upward. And eventually your goals should be to better mankind, but it has to start with doing work for yourself and planning for yourself. It's a balance. As part of your life goals, as part of what you want to do, you should have a family. I know it's easy to say because, well, I don't. So maybe a bit hypocritical. But it's a part of my life plan and everything as well. It's just, I think, here's the challenge, man. And I know this too. If good people of good moral fiber and values don't have kids, then there will be no one to carry on your values into the future. So I worry for the future if people like us aren't having kids, and we're not. Millennials just not having kids. Don't ask me why. I can't tell you. I can tell you that a lot of people are getting vasectomies over political causes, and there's a lot of men who simp. You know, there'll be some lefty woman, and she'll be like, I believe this, that, or otherwise. And the guy will be like, whatever you say, I'll say whatever you want. But then these guys also are like, women don't like nice guys. It's a trope, isn't it? Men saying women don't like nice guys, and there's a subreddit about it. You don't want to be a nice guy. You want to be a driven, honorable, honest, hardworking man. You believe in yourself. You try to do right by others. You stand by what you believe. You don't let people push you around, and you earn the respect. That's the thing about guys, man. Guys have to earn the respect. They have to earn status. You can't just think you're going to have money or whatever and give people things and they're going to respect you for it. You can try and apologize. You can try and simp all day and night. You're not going to get respect for it. You've got to just be yourself. You got to stand up for what you believe in. You've got to admit when you're wrong. You got to accept when you're wrong. You got to know when it's right to apologize, but you got to know when it's right to stand up and say, no, you move. And it's not easy to do. It's not easy to be a good person. But I will say this. Have nothing to lose. And what I mean by that is, of course you will, but always keep in mind that whether you're protecting your friends and your family or your ideals, you have somewhere to go. You have a backup plan. You know, I view this like I could get banned from YouTube at any moment. And if I do, then I know what I'm going to do. And I've said before, like, you know, I'm going to, go in a van down by the river. And a lot of people said, no, you won't, Tim. What I mean to say, and I'll clarify this, is I would be happy just getting away from all of the chaos and the smears and the anger and just going fishing. Just going out to the middle of nowhere, you know, just playing video games, relaxing under the sun, not thinking about all the pandemic and lockdown stuff and just living my life. It would just be so nice. But I'm driven. I have goals, and there are things I want to do. So I have this passion for these causes. But I will tell you this in all honesty. If I were to get banned or shut down, I'd probably just go into consulting. I would work with other companies on how to, on communications and media, and I could probably write. I could probably, do behind the scenes stuff at any one of these companies and find a job. So that says to me, the greatest risk in all of this is not getting banned. There's certainly a place for me at any one of these other companies in terms of writing or whatever. The greater risk is not standing up for what we believe in. Because then, 10 years from now, if everything we believe in is gone, we'll be standing in the barren wasteland of the world we wished we wanted to live in. Nothing there. But if we plant those seeds now, in 50 years' time, there will be shade for which our children may sit beneath. I don't have all the answers. I am not the arbiter of morality. I am not the arbiter of truth. I'm a dude on the internet who reads stories and gives his opinions, and you are absolutely entitled to criticize and insult and deride me all day and night. Because I have never been the person who just thinks that I'm better than other people or anything like that. And there are people who criticize me saying that I'm arrogant or whatever, and it's like, overconfident. I certainly believe what I believe. And, for the most part, I look at it this way. I won't tell you what to do. I don't want to tell you what to do. I want you to figure out for yourself what to do. And I want us all to be left alone. That's the libertarian mindset. There are other people who say this. There's a COVID risk, so everyone else should be locked in their home. It reminds me of Bender from Futurama, to get into more pop culture references. Bender, there's an episode where he goes, I'm so embarrassed. I wish everyone else was dead. That really exemplifies to me the leftist Democrat establishment mindset. I'm so scared, everyone else should be locked in their homes. Because that's what they do. You know, Nancy Pelosi, everybody's got to wear a mask, and then she doesn't. Yeah, everyone else do it, so I get to do what I want. No, I'm not about that. I'm not going to tell you what to do. If I'm worried about getting sick, I just won't go to your party. I won't tell you to cancel your party. I'll say, hey, I'm kind of worried about getting sick. I don't think I want to show up. I know, I'm sorry, man. That's just me. I'm going to make a decision for myself. That's the more libertarian view. I believe that's the appropriate view. I believe it leads to prosperity, and it will make the world a better place if we all focus in this way. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.